Welcome to Wellthy Living Conversations. I'm Lisa, your host and founder of Wellthy Living. It's here that I connect with a variety of wonderful people to have inspiring and insightful conversations to help you live a meaningful, connected and well life, both personally and professionally. So talking about mental health and mental illness are commonplace these days. They're on the agendas in schools and workplaces, across all social media networks, in government organisations. And this is a really great step forward in mental health awareness and destigmatising mental illness. But I wonder how much real life courageous action people are taking to live a happier, more meaningful and connected life. So my guest today is someone who definitely takes courageous action, and some might even say outrageous action, to live his best life, and in turn has made it his mission to help people be healthier and happier by making himself healthier and happier. He refers to it as moving people up the mental health continuum to become mentally fitter. His name is Jimi Hunt. He's an adventurer, experimenter, Guinness World Record holder and best-selling author, and he's here to share his mental fitness wisdom with us today. So welcome, Jimi.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate it, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. So before we get into the conversation, I wanted to share with the listeners how I came across you and why I chose this conversation to be my episode for the month of Mental Health Month. So when scrolling through LinkedIn, I came across your post. And it read, I'm going to read it to everyone. It said, "I'm going on a new adventure. I'm walking home the entire length of Aotearoa." Is that how you say it?
Aotearoa.
Aotearoa. 3,000 kilometres in about 100 days. It's Mental Health Awareness Week. And although more awareness is always a good thing, I also believe we're quite aware that we're in a really bad place in this country right now. Over 50% of us are currently concerned for our own mental health. 87% believe their job has adversely affected their mental health in the last 3 months. We need action. We need changed behaviours. One thing has been scientifically proven over and over to increase mental health outcomes is connection. And that's what this walk is about. I'm encouraging as many people as I can to come walk sections of this with me and then go and spread the message of connection in 3-part back to their communities. Connection with self, taking time without distractions to observe your thoughts in order to find real self-awareness. You cannot change what you're not aware of. Connection to the land. All studies basically show more nature, less depression. The land can teach us to reset and regulate our nervous systems, and something is paramount to good mental fitness and connection with each other. So creating small tribes of people who can care for, teach and lift each other up. The most potent tool into raising your mental fitness. These are the skills I'll be teaching on the walk and promoting over social media. Join me. So ultimately, I probably should have got you to read that in hindsight, but nevertheless,
So good.
That
was a long post. I'm glad anyone read it.
It was a long post, and I read it, and I'd never come across you before, and I still read it, and it really sparked my interest to come and reach out to you. And it did.
Thank you.
And it did this because my mantra is connection is medicine. And the Wellthy Living tagline is connection to self, others, and the world around us. So I thought a man who speaks my language, writes about mental fitness, perfect for this Mental Health Awareness Month. So thank you for writing that and joining me today.
Not a problem. Happy to be here.
Let's start with your why. Why do you do what you do, and what's your message?
It's a very simple why. I would like to move as close to ultimate contentment as I can possibly be. And the slight correction on your lovely intro is that my framework is the mental fitness continuum and not the mental health continuum. And there's a very good reason.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. No, just the reason that I want to bring this up and actually explain it is because when we talk about mental health, traditionally it's binary. So you're either mentally well or you're mentally ill. And that is a narrative that we have told for decades. And it is a very unhealthy and unhelpful narrative. Mm-hmm. And so the sort of the rebrand from mental health to mental fitness fits far more into what we actually scientifically know about mental health, in that it is a continuum that you slowly move up and down, and nothing's going to teleport you to the top, and nothing's going to magically drop you to the bottom. And so it works just like physical fitness. Small, simple steps done daily gets you fitter, and you get all of these benefits off the back of that. And then if you sit on the couch and do nothing, you're going to have small deteriorations over time that's going to lead to all sorts of complications and problems. And so what we really should all be trying to do is put in those small gradual steps every day in order to better our outcomes in general, because the further we move up the continuum, the more understanding, the more perspective, the more love, the more compassion, the more empathy that we have for ourselves and everyone else around us. And so my why is very simple. I want to be more content. I want to be what I term unfuckwithable, which means like life happens to you and it doesn't mess you up. It doesn't fuck with your day. But when you're down the bottom end, the weather can, the traffic can, other people can, all of these things mess with people's attitudes and happiness in general. And so the further I move up, the better it is for me. Mm-hmm. Selfish, perfectly number one. Except the definition for selfish is to put yourself first to the detriment of others. And I'm not doing that, and I'm not asking anyone else to do that. I'm asking you to put yourself first for the benefit of everybody else. Because the further I move up that continuum, the better I am. Great. The better my wife is, the less likely she is to be cheated on or beaten or abused in any way, shape, or form, right? The further I move up, the better I am at my job, whether it's a normal job in the normal world or what I do, which is try to help other people by teaching these same principles that I have practiced and learned myself, so that they can then learn them and move up along with me. So my why is pretty strong, pretty clear, and it's worked out pretty good for me so far.
Yeah, brilliant. And, that's a great mission, and, sparking joy and trying to remain as joyful as we can is, I suppose, somewhat an antidote to mental illness. And, it's not going to be the magic bullet of everything, but it's certainly gonna help on that continuum that you talk about. So
yeah, but like Joyce, just before you go into that question, just on that little bit, like the top of my continuum and my framework is what I call contentment.
Yes.
And that is above joy and happiness. Yep. Because joy and happiness are temporary states. And if we're forever chasing happy or chasing joy, no one can sit in those states for a long period of time. They are states we touch on, and they're wonderful to touch on, and we should look to touch on them as many as we can, but we can't stay in that state. A state that we can stay in, and it should be our ultimate state, is that of contentment, that we are absolutely happy and just chill, and life is absolutely fine exactly where we are in this present moment. Yeah. And that is something that we can hold on to for a longer period of time. And that is what is my ultimate goal.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I suppose that's why, in my mind, I chose the word joy instead of happy, because I suppose for me,
Yeah.
joy and contentment sort of came together. But yeah, I absolutely agree. And thanks for clarifying that. So, why do you think that the stats around people being mentally unwell or not happy or not in states of contentment, struggling, overwhelm, anxiety, depression, all of these feelings or these states of being, why do you think they are the way they are?
Well, scientifically, it's pretty simple. It is a societal problem. It is not that of an individual.
Mhm.
And what we do is we sort of treat mental illness, we treat states of low mental fitness as individual problems when they're really societal problems.
Mm.
And all we are seeing is almost the culmination of bad practices that are leading to the epidemic around mental illness. And so, I mean, we see this. I mean, we had COVID for a couple of years. Now we're having an economic meltdown with world war on the doorstep, all of this sort of carry on. It's no wonder. But even if you take those things out of the equation, what we can see and what we can track is that the more we try to advance, in inverted commas, as a society, the higher the rates of mental illness. And we can track this from all sorts of developing countries. As far as India has developed from a third world to a developing, trying to get into a first world, their mental health rates have followed exactly. And then one of the other most simple things is that we can inversely track the rate of inequality with the rate of mental illness. And so the larger the inequality in a society, the higher the rate of mental illness. And so we know that people need their basic needs met. And a lot of people are struggling on that right now. And when you end up spending far too much time in your sympathetic nervous state, your state of fight, flight, freeze, even a low level sympathetic nervous state, then we start seeing all sorts of bad outcomes out of that. And unfortunately, with the way Johann Hari, I can't remember who he quotes because it's not him, but he quotes it. He uses the term junk values that we have as a society, what we put on a pedestal compared to what actually matters. And so these combination of all of these factors of the way that we're trending in our society is just a perfect storm for depression, anxiety. And this is the thing, what we're seeing is a massive rate of lifestyle-based mood disorders. We're not seeing massive increase of neurodiverse problems such as schizophrenia and things like that. So we know that as they are lifestyle-based mood disorders, that they are caused by the society that we're living in.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with you totally on that. And so I'm going to pose a thing around something around that. And that's that we've called out that, or you've just called out that it's the reason that this is all happening and that these rates and these statistics exist is pretty much a societal issue. It's the cultures that workplaces exist in, that all institutions exist in. It's the toxicity. It's the decisions that are making on a more community, state, country, global level. And
Yes.
so we've got all of that on one hand. And on the other hand, a lot of your mission is around personal responsibility in order to, take personal responsibility. So I want to pose the idea, and it's not, necessarily that I agree with one or the other, but I just want to have a bit of an open conversation around the idea of how much is the responsibility should be on the person and how much is it that by putting all the responsibility on the person, that we're just gaslighting people, as opposed to working on the fact that cultures and toxic workplaces and toxic systems need to change.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating topic. So thank you for asking a good question. But first of all, in my viewpoint, it's 100% on the individual, right?
Yep.
So I have a chapter in my book around radical ownership, because what it comes down to really is that shit happens, and we have to respond to that or react to it. And we usually react to it. Yeah. And so the question is, how can we learn enough skills and understandings to be able to respond to it so we have better outcomes than just reacting to everything? Because ultimately, I can give you every resource on the planet to move you up the mental fitness continuum, but unless you are willing to choose to do the work inside of that, inside of you, then nothing will change. And we see that just, and I saw it in me. I see it in all sorts of other people. It's like, I'm not ready to do the work until I'm ready to do the work, right?
Yeah.
And so on one hand, it is 100% your responsibility, but there should be things in place that can help you make those choices, teach you the skills to be able to do that. And so the question lies, how do we change a culture? And Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point book, I think it's something like 7%. All we need is 77% of influencers moving one way to tip the scale to have everything, all the followers come in after that. And so what we really need to do to change any culture inside a family or an organization or a community or a country is to get 7% of these people moved far enough up the continuum to be able to then take on things like governments or boards or whatever. And it's really simple. Like, the lower you go down the continuum, the more it becomes about the self. And you get the blinkers on because you're in a survival state. And all of the resources that you have at your disposal, all of the mental resources, all of the physical resources, even your financial resources, are going in to make sure that you survive today. And so it's very hard to ask those people to opt in to changing a culture. It's like, go away, like I've got to get through the day. And so the more healthy individuals that we create, the more likely we are to have a groundswell to be able to change a corporate culture by simply people quitting, for example. Like, you're much more likely to quit your toxic work environment if you're in a good place.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in survival mode, there's no way you should quit. It's like,
yes.
It's like financially, like cripple you or whatever, and you've got a lot of fear that boils up. And then it's the same inside a government, a subjugated nation is just blinkers on trying to get through the day, when what we really need is people to rise up and be able to make sound, logical, rational decisions inside of a broken system to then help change it. Because one of the big problems, if you want to change a system, is a lot of people are like, this system sucks, I don't want this system anymore. And you're like, okay, cool, let's abolish it like that. So what system would you like to put in place?
Yeah.
Oh shit, I got no idea.
Yeah.
I got no idea. And so we need people in a decent state to be able to start creating those new systems.
Yeah.
And so that's the general answer to your question, is that it is absolutely a societal and cultural problem that's causing this distress, but it is 100% the individuals taking responsibility for their own states and getting to a place where they can then actually change that system.
Yeah, so thank you for offering your thoughts around that, and I agree with so much of what you said. I just think it's a conversation that often people bypass, and I think it's time that we called out things maybe as they are a little bit. So what I heard from what you said, and let me know whether this is what you're saying, and that is that, and that is that, that what we need as individuals is to have the inner power to take our personal responsibility to make aligned decisions and not just put up with things. So that, I love how you said, when you're in an organization and it's a toxic workplace, then your responsibility to yourself is to quit. And to me, that's about having that
or to change that workplace, or to go into bat for the other people that cannot, and help change that culture. Go hit up senior management and go, look, this is not working. You're not getting the best out of your employees. So, hey, what can we do as an organization? Here are these studies that I've found that show if you have a better culture, you're going to make more money. And so, hey, do you want to get on board at trying to make this change? But like that takes a confident person who is higher up the mental fitness continuum and has already done the work and gone, hey, I've learned these things, and we can change our circumstances inside that, just like I changed my circumstances for myself.
Yeah, and I think that there's definitely help and guidance from people that are up higher on the continuum that can help that. I think that it's a very ingrained process in a lot of organisations and a lot of just institutions, that's been stemmed back for a long time and run, unfortunately, on patriarchal systems. And it's not a lot of oppression, and it's not a simple like, I have a lot of it's definitely like, I go into organisations and do a lot with them on on well-being and culture around well-being and connected leadership and all of those things as an external person. But it is hard when you're inside an organisation and you're feeling a lot of those things. I like that idea of having the inner power and being, so you're in that empowered position because you've moved up that continuum to be able to make decisions that are courageous and ask those curious questions at the same time of the organisation. But just continuously being true to yourself. So I definitely agree with that responsibility and that inner responsibility, or personal responsibility for everybody to get mentally fitter, as you say, so that each individual has that inner power to make aligned decisions.
Because here's the alternative, Lisa. The alternative is that you let everybody else run your life.
Exactly.
And you let everything happen to you, and you just are passive in creating who you are and what you should be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think that's a great alternative.
No.
And I think, but I think a lot of people have never been taught the skills to be able to consciously create and make choices around how to move themselves up and how to create a life that works for them.
Yeah, absolutely. If we don't make our own decisions, someone will make them for us.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what do you then believe the focus needs to be? Like, that's all good. That
action.
And when you say action, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So I've written 3 books about this sort of stuff, and I'll get lots of people come up to me. Oh, I read your book. I really liked it. I'm like, cool. So what do you now? What have you done with that information? How has it changed your life? Like what we're very, very, very good at doing as humans is collecting information. And so we'll collect it from TED Talks, we'll collect it from books or speakers or podcasts or whatever. We'll collect it. And then we don't fucking do anything about it. We do not put it into action to change our current circumstances. There's a quote that I really, really love, which is, if you know, but you do not do, then you do not really know.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so if you know, but you do not do, then you do not know.
Yeah.
Because what's the point of having that information in your head if you're not actually going to utilize it to live a better life? And so what the problem with most humans is that we try and take off too big a chunks.
Yeah.
And we try and go, right, I'm making this wholesale change. You're like, well, that didn't work after 4 days, so that's the end of that, right? Instead of understanding that we are in a long game. Life is short, but the game is long. And we have, many thousands of days to be able to make small incremental changes that are exponential, because we get growth on top of growth. It's called the aggregation of marginal gains. Growth on growth, exponential, boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, we're massively different to where we were a year ago, because we did 1% every day instead of trying to do 100% on day one. And this is the problem. Like, we just have, as humans, we have a bunch of problems. We're a messed up species. But when we actually take radical ownership, and then we start making constant conscious choices, then we start seeing this small gradual change over time. But we're taking action. And the best way to sort of talk about this is to change it into a physical analogy, because people understand that inherently. And so one of the simplest things is the gym, right? So let's say you walk into the gym and you're like, right, and you go over to the weight bench and you stack up 200 kilograms on the bench press bar, and then you go, right, I'm going to bench press this, and you can't. There's no physical way you can possibly do that. It is impossible, right? Because you know that when you go into the gym in day one, they're going to give you a broomstick, so you learn technique. And you're going to spend a couple of weeks just on the broomstick before they even allow you to pick up a bar. And then they won't allow you to put plates on the bar until you've got the 15-kilogram bar working properly. And then they're going to slowly add plates as you build up your strength. And then, like, in a blink of an eye, in like a year, because you turned up, 3 times a week and you did these little exercises, you're bench pressing a whole lot of weight. You're deadlifting a whole lot of weight, because you've grown your muscles consistently over time. The exact same thing is how your brain works. That's how neuroplasticity works. And so when we want to create change internally, we've got to have the same mindset. Small incremental change consistently over an extended period of time. And when we do that, we start seeing these little wins. And like, it's cool. Like, so, I mean, let's just say we'll flip it over to a weight loss journey, right? So you go in at 150 kilograms on day one, and you're like, everything is hard. And then after a month of just doing the absolute basics, just 3 times a week, you weigh yourself and you're at 140. And you're like, oh, wow, that's progress, that's change. And the biggest motivator for humans is progress. So when we see these little bits of progress, it makes us want to go back and do more, and then go back and do more. And then again, at the end of a year, boom, massive change. And this is the problem. We need to give ourselves a year rather than a 6-week boot camp or a 30-day challenge or something like that to see actual neurological change.
Yep. So I think that advice is really good. It's like that: start slow, build up bit by bit, and the key is consistency. And I think that it works. It does work. But it's really hard often for a lot of people, and I know a lot of people at the moment, because of the last couple of years or because of all these societal problems that we're talking about, they feel really stuck. they struggle to get motivated. And that's why the idea of a small little task every day seems doable. So that's great advice.
Exactly.
Doable. But how do you change?
Do you know one of the big problems here? Sorry, but one of the big problems with this is all of these people that you're talking about, and we all know them, and listeners may be one of them. And the problem with all of these people is that they're trying to do it alone. Right? And so here's the thing about when you go into a gym, you may walk into a gym alone, but if you walk into a gym at 150 or 200 kilograms and you're like, I'm turning up every day for like 3 weeks, after 3 weeks, the whole gym knows who you are. The whole gym is on your side. They're rooting for you. They're stoked to see you each time. And then you want to turn up. And so this is the difference with what we do in our heads is we tend to do it alone in our own homes. And the biggest and most effective way in order to create change is to join a group of people who are already what you want to become. And so when you join a group of people, like if it's a gym or something like a marathon, right? So don't come and hang out with me and my friends if you want to run a marathon. We're not going to help you. Right? We're not the people for you.
Yeah.
If you want to run a marathon, you need to go and join a group of marathon runners who have all already run marathons. Yeah. Because what they do is they are modeling the behavior that you would like to emulate. They have the patterns that you would like to learn. They have the experience and the learnings and the mistakes that you would like to not make. And so they will help lift you up to a level. But this stuff we do alone.
Yes.
And one of the simplest things is like, even if you're not thinking about a group or a gym or that sort of analogy, think of it in terms of one other person, like an accountability partner. So you're much more likely to go to the gym if you know your mate's waiting for you there at 7 a.m. Right? So you turn up and you do it. And so when we're working on this mental fitness journey, we need to be doing a lot of the things that you do on a physical fitness journey. Find someone to do it with. You know, quite often it could just be your partner, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever. It's like, hey, honey, we should really try and improve our mental fitness. Like, we're going to get all these things off it. Let's try and do some of these things together, 3 times a week. And you're like, cool. And then so you have an accountability partner. You don't have a partner, get a friend. You don't have that, go join a forum and ask a stranger and someone will do it with you.
Yeah.
And then you'll become friends, right? But this is one of the biggest problems with the difference between the mental and the physical is that we do the physical in groups and we do the mental all alone. And that aloneness, that loneliness negatively impacts our progress massively.
Yeah. There's so much in what you said that I want to touch on in different areas, and let's hope we can. One is, which I want to come back to actually, and that's the role that connection plays. And obviously that's one of the things that drew me to the conversation with you. So I definitely want to come back to that in a second. And I want to say that I 100% agree for myself that when I'm feeling stuck, for me, being around people that inspire me, people that I feel that are smarter than me, or people that are doing stuff that I want to do, really, really helps me. It's probably one of the reasons I often do this podcast is because I love connecting with people.
Of course.
Doing awesome stuff. And it inspires me. So, for me, that really works. I want to flip it for a second and talk about the reality of a lot of people that are in the position of overwhelm, anxiety, stuckness, and therefore are really struggling with that motivation. And like you said, a lot of people know information in their head, but they struggle to take action. So a lot of people know in their head, accountability buddy would really help. A group would really help. This aloneness is making it worse. All of these things that you just said, a lot of people know it up here, but a lot of people's problem is the inspiration to take action. And sometimes that comes from the fact that they're in this cycle of stuckness. They therefore have lost confidence. There's a lot of not enoughness. They approach someone, their fear of rejection, it makes them feel even worse. They have an accountability buddy. They have a shit day. They don't show up. They feel like a failure. Again, feeds into the not enoughness. How do you suggest people get out of that loop and stay motivated?
I have a very simple answer. You can go to my website.
Yep.
You can go to the basic reset. You can go to the basic reset program. It's completely free, and it is designed. It's an email-based program, and I'm going to send you an email over a bunch of emails over 100 days. And it is about getting you unstuck by starting that wheel. And so, like in this program, for the first week, the only things you have to do for the first week are read 5 emails that'll turn up in the first 7 days. That's it. And start drinking 2 liters of water every day. That's it. Right? That's the first week. And then we start slowly adding extra things along the way over the 100 days. And it's designed exactly to just start getting that ball rolling. I mean, and the reason I start with 2 liters of water is that it is just one of the simplest and easiest ways to improve your mental fitness and mental health. Be properly hydrated. Most people are dehydrated, and a great number are chronically dehydrated. We're drinking too much of the wrong things, or we're just not drinking enough at all. Increasing that water intake to 2 liters a day is a simple and easy step. And that is something that no matter what state you are in, no matter how stuck, no matter how poorly you feel, even if you're like, I can't even get out of bed, I'm like, cool, you can read 5 emails in bed over a week. And you have to go to the toilet, so just fill your glass up in the sink, and you can drink water. These are things you can do at no matter what state. And so this is the thing. Like I said it before, the greatest motivator is progress. And so you just need to start at the smallest amount that you can start at. So let's just say you came to me, Lisa, and you're like, look, I'm in a reasonable state, but hey, I'd like to go a lot better. Then cool, I can go, cool. Well, here are like 4 or 5 things that I want you to think about, 2 things I want you to work on. And you can go, oh yeah, cool, I'm going to go and try those things, because you're in a reasonably mentally fit state to be able to do that. And if you're not, you need to go smaller and simpler. And so if it's just starting with 2 liters of water a day, then so be it. And we build from there, wherever your there is.
Yeah, great. I love that. And thank you for sharing your program. And that sounds perfect. A perfect way. They don't feel alone. They're kind of like with you. And everyone else that's doing the same program. So yeah, that's a great offering, and I'll put the link to that in the show notes of the episode. So cool. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really really great way. And I know that a lot of people do struggle with that. I mean, I know on days I've struggled with that and struggled with the motivation, and it can be really hard. So let's get back for a second to the connection. Yeah, because I think that that's a really real connection is key. And I've said it over and over, and it's connection to self, others, and the world around us. And you obviously feel the same, and that's why you're going on this next adventure. So talk to me a little bit about how you came to that idea, I know that you've done a whole lot of other wacky things like building the greatest, biggest water slide and liloing across
I do have the Guinness World Record for the world's biggest water slide.
Yeah.
And yes, I have swum a pool float down New Zealand's longest river. I've done some dumb things before. And like walking it's interesting because I say you're walking the entire length of New Zealand. But actually, the entire length of New Zealand is only 1,600 kilometers, and this walk is actually 3,000 kilometers. It's almost twice the length of New Zealand with all the zigzagging you do down the country. I came to this idea and conclusion because I go down to the beach in the morning, meditate and journal, and I just kept hearing you need to walk long distances. And I was like, okay. So I started walk further, and then I just heard you need to walk the length of New Zealand. So I was like, okay. And then as it started to, it's random, I know, but as it started to unfold, everything started to fall into place. And so, as with anything I do, if I do it for me, I'm always doing it for other people. And I have a mental health charity in New Zealand. I've done 10 years of extensive work in trying to change the way cultures think about and deal with mental health. And I've sort of got to this place where like I needed to do the work on the rebranding from mental health to mental fitness. That was a stage because we needed to change the way we looked at it. And now I've got this vision of what I'm seeing in society, and that, yeah, we're massively talking 1,000 times more, 10,000 times more than we were 10 years ago. Brilliant, wonderful. But we're just talking about it and we're not doing anything about it. Our rates are continuing to go up and we're not seeing change behaviors. And so I was really trying to boil it down to what are the most simple and highly effective actions that we can take in order to change our behaviors, therefore change culture. And connection on those three parts, and you and I obviously think very similar because mine is connection with the self, connection with the land, and connection with others, same. And like connection is one of the, it's well studied. We know the benefits of it, but we're still not very good at doing it. And so what can I do to actually teach these skills? Because first of all, connection with the self is something that 1% of this population has. We know we're not self-aware. Every study has showed it. We know that we're not very good at observing our thoughts. We know that we are very, very good at distracting ourselves out of our reality with escapism in terms of social media, TV, internet, and all of the other things. We have barely any time where our brain gets to breathe over itself and go inward. We know that we have a loneliness epidemic in the world right now, that people do not have close friendships. We think that the followers that we talk to on our social media, on LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever, are our friends, and they're not. But even if they are, the quality of those connections is detrimental to our mental health, because we know that the quality is more important than the quantity of connections. And we know, again, from every study, that in the simplest form, more nature equals less depression. And if you live in a first world country, you will spend over 95% of your life indoors. We eat indoors, we work indoors, we relax indoors, we do everything indoors. And it's not how we were built as human machines. Our bodies are not meant to function inside under fluorescent bloody lights. And so we need the vitamin D outside. We need to be discharging our electrical field that's built up from all our gadgets through grounding, through touching the actual earth with our feet or our hands, whether it's gardening or walking on the beach or whatever. We just know all of these things. And they're real simple. They're completely free, And if we just started doing some of them as a culture and we encourage them, then we will see mental health outcomes change.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm just doing my part at encouraging it. That's it.
That's right. So you're basically choosing the importance of role modeling as your way to teach. And I love that.
Of course.
And I love, and I think, we're all taught. I mean, I don't know if you're a parent, but I'm a parent. And, when you read things about, when you say, oh, I can't get this through to my child and whatever, and you start reading about it because you hit the internet and go, how can I resolve this? It's always role model the behavior that you want to see. And, and it's true. And I love that you're taking action and inviting so many people, including strangers, to come along board with you, because we all know that when we experience something, not just read about it or learn about it in our heads, but experience it, we're going to deepen the connection.
Yeah. My sister has an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they're like, fuck, shit. And she's like, oi, don't swear. And like you go around to her house and she's like, oh, I can't believe this fucking worked, and I can't believe this fucking worked, and shit fucked up. Right. And you're like, how can you expect your children not to swear when you are constantly swearing around them, right? You're modeling the behavior and they are learning that behavior. And the number one question that I usually get after my talks and stuff from parents is, hey, my son, my daughter, blah, 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 not doing great. How do I help them? And the first question I ask them is, hey, where are you on the mental fitness continuum? Yeah. And they're like, oh, no, not about me. Like, I need to get my child up. Like, they're more important than me. I'm like, no. And I said, the simplest thing is, you cannot teach what you do not know. And if you're expecting anyone else to teach your kids this shit, well, you're in fucking la la land, because it ain't happening. And here's the problem is, if they are taught it, like, you could give me your child for 8 hours a day and I could teach them a whole bunch of things. But then if they go home for the other 16 hours and you are role modeling things in the different way, in the not good way, then you as a parent have the strongest bond with them, and therefore they're going to follow you, not follow me. So there's even no point in me teaching them those things for 8 hours, because you're just going to ruin it, right? You cannot teach what you do not know. If you want to help anybody in your life, whether it's your parents, your partner, your brother, your sister, your parents, whatever, you have to role model that behavior. And if you role model it and they see the changes, the positive changes that you're making in your life, they're going to want to get on board. It's just like when someone you haven't seen in a year has lost a bunch of weight, and you're like, oh my God, you look great. How have you done that? And they're like, oh, well, I've done this. And they start teaching you what they've done. And you're like, oh, maybe I'll try that. That's how change occurs.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of merit in role modeling. And I think what there's also a lot of merit in, and that's something that you may not use these words, but in something that I've read of yours before preparation for this interview, was along the lines of a peer-to-peer model. So if I understood rightly, when I read something of yours, it was like you do something that then the people that come on board, you teach them, and then they go and tell all that to, and there's this ripple effect of this peer-to-peer model. And I think that that's an extremely underutilized but very effective way of creating greater change along this mental health continuum
it's the only way.
Yeah.
It is the only way. And so there are people that are like, I read your book, I made all of these changes, and now my husband is doing all of these things because he saw me do them and saw me have the positive aspects, right? And then, so yay, the husband's better. And then the husband goes to work and like, shit hits the fan, everything falls apart. And he's in there regulating his nervous system, observing his thoughts, and making sound, logical decisions in this chaotic state. And everything works out. And then at the end, his boss is like, holy shit, how did you do that? A year ago, you would have blown up just like I blew up. And he's like, well, I learned this from my wife. And then boom, 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 off it goes. That is the only way we change anything.
Yeah. And it brings me back, I suppose, full circle to initially the first thing that I asked you, and that was what is your why, or why you do what you do. And it is that idea that if, people always ask, what's your purpose? What's your why? What's your purpose in life? And if you were to answer, my purpose in life is to be content, or my purpose in life is to be happy or joyful or whatever, people go, yeah, but what's your purpose? But what's your purpose? But yeah, that's your purpose, because that has the ripple effect that goes out.
It's not selfish. It's beneficial for others.
That's right. So if everybody had that purpose, what an incredible world we would all live in. There'd be so much less projection, so much less judgment. People would be owning, taking personal responsibility, accountability, and we'd all just communicate and relate so much better with each other, hence enhancing the connection.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, thank you for, I know you've got to run and you've got some things to do, but I think that that's probably a really nice place to end anyway. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, not really. Again, doing your podcast, and no offense, I haven't even looked up your podcast. You when you contacted me, we don't know each other, but now we do. We've connected. That's wonderful. But I don't even bother looking up your podcast because I don't care, because it is just another chance that I am so grateful for, to be able to impact one person.
Yes.
There will be one person. And you listening to this right now, you might have been, well, that was a load of shit. You're like, cool, move on to the next episode. The next guest will be way, way better than me. But there'll be a person in here that's like, fuck, that's just blowing my mind. And now I'm going to go make a change in my behavior based off something that was said today.
Yeah.
That is my why. And that is all I can ever possibly ask for. So thank you for letting me come on.
Oh, pleasure. And it is the number one reason that I do a podcast, and that is to connect with lots of different people. And you were a random person, like I said in the beginning, that I just saw a post on LinkedIn of, and I haven't read your books, but I might go and read them now. And I didn't know much about you. So, I just reached out randomly, and I'm glad that you said yes. So thanks again. And, it's been lovely to get your valuable insights for today. So those of you who are listening.
Sure. I will just say that, sorry. I will just say that if anybody needs anything or wants anything, just go to jimihunt.com, and I have a very simple model in that I charge companies a shitload of money to come and speak to their staff. So if you have a company that has a shitload of money and wants to spend it, I will come and help them massively. And I do that so that I can help anyone else on the planet for free. That's why my programs are free. That's why if you can't afford to purchase the physical copy of my book, I will give you the audio book or the PDF for free, because I just want to help people. So if you need anything, just go to jimihunt.com and get in touch. I'm happy to chat and see if I can help you or point you in the right direction.
Perfect. I was actually gonna ask you to share that in a second, so you're ahead of me. So thank you. But for everyone who is listening, thank you for your time and your interest in today's conversation. And it would be really great to hear what your biggest insight or takeaway is. Wherever you have found the podcast, please leave a comment and let us know what is your insight and takeaway. And if you find Jimi Jimi's social media sites and you want to share a comment with him about the podcast, please do that as well. And if you have listened and you found it valuable, please share it with your network and consider subscribing to the Wellthy Living podcast on both wherever you listen to your podcasts or on my YouTube channel. To find out more about my services, you can visit my website at Wellthy Living, WELLTHY living.com.au, or connect with me on any of my social media channels. So until next time, remember, connection is medicine.